Alright, this is going to be a video on multiple issues. It's not very well structured or laid out. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to say or when I'm going to say it. I often work that way. I'm not sure if I would be smarter to kind of structure my videos or maybe even script them or have a layout or concept of what I'm going to say, but right now I'm going to try to get to the point, and since I'm going to more or less inevitably, I didn't say that right, end up fucking talking about it anyways. I guess let's start off talking about circumcision or male genital mutilation. Male genital mutilation is one. Why do, as far as why do I talk about that so much? I really don't know why. I've heard before, and I've heard different people say before that in life, sometimes if you pick one issue and just kind of concentrate on that issue, whatever it is, you can affect some kind of change, or you have a better chance of affecting some change in the world than if you talk about a lot of different shit. But really, that's just not what I do. That's not how I work, because my brain encompasses a lot of different stuff, and I end up talking about a lot of different stuff and more than just one thing. That's really not how I work. So I like to talk about more than one thing, but maybe on more of a subconscious level or subconsciously at some point, and maybe even consciously, but on some level subconsciously, I kind of said to my point, I said to myself rather that, maybe if I just focus on this one issue, or I focus on general mutilation, maybe I'll be able to affect some change having to do with that, because that is an issue that for multiple reasons, and I can't begin to go into them all and talk about anything else, or have time to talk about anything else, because that would be like a fucking half an hour long video at least. So, just to go into some reasons, that is something that but first let me say that's something for many reasons I care a lot about. And it's something I've really preoccupied myself with, and preoccupies a large portion of my mind. Now that I've explained that, let me also go into detail and say, or let me say rather, that I think circumcision is something, because if you just go on the web and look it up, and I think it's something you need research into. For me, I was very young, probably a small child when I first learned about it, and I was circumcised. And at first, I don't think I knew exactly what it was, but I just knew I didn't support it, and I knew it was fucked up. And as I went on, I learned what it was, and I still thought it was fucked up. And it's just something I'm not really positive about. I don't support it. I don't understand why you do it. I still don't understand why you do it. And it seems very illogical. And then they give reasons why. And then when you look into those reasons, almost all of them are easily, or if not easily, they are at least on some level disprovable in one way or another on all of them on some level. And yet it's just still something they do, and they don't want to learn, because if you, here is something I've heard people say before that are against circumcision, or people in the anti-circumcision movement or activists. I've heard them say this, and I'm not sure if it's said a lot by them, or if it's a popular saying, or if it's just something some people say. But I have heard people say this, and that is, the more you research circumcision, or the more you know about it, it's something, or it's one thing that the less you support it. You support it more when you know less about it. And it's like, I've seen videos of circumcision things, so it's really brutal, barbaric shit. At any level, at any age level, it's a very brutal operation, whether it's an infant or an older child. The only positive about doing it to an infant is they can't remember it. But you're assuming they can't remember years down the road. We really do not know what amount of memory a baby can contain, and we certainly know they know you're doing it while you're doing it. And it's in some ways worse, because they have no clue of why you're doing it. They just know that you're doing it, But it's fucked up, and it's messed up, and it's not something we should do, and there's no reason to. I'm against all of it, and I don't think that it should be done, and there's no reason to do it, with the exception perhaps of pinpricking. But even with that, it's pointless and it's stupid, and there's no reason to do it. But if you won't, knock yourself out. But then again, that's true about the entire thing, and that's one of my problems with it, And it's ridiculous. And I've seen videos of like news reports about children dying from it. Like I said before, there was a child who was castrated. Supposedly, between 80 to 100 children die a year from this. And again, even with pinpricking, that is illegal to do to girls. So you can't even do that to girls, but you can literally remove and or cut part of the male child's genitals off, and that's considered to be just fine and dandy and okay, and hey, no problem in America. And that to me is just bullshit. And I guess that might as well bring me to another issue, and that's privilege. Now, at least on racial issues, I in some ways agree with the privilege theory. I certainly don't so much agree with it with gender, even though I don't really want to go into that. But I think that there may be some issues with females having issues, certainly in Alabama, and they want to make it that way in Georgia. They're not letting them have abortions in the first trimester. That's certainly not a privilege. You're taking a right from them, I think. I think abortion in the first trimester is a right. I don't see the harm done. But, you know, I just spent like, the first going on 6 minutes or over 5 minutes of this video talking about genital mutilation of males, something you can't do to females legally without their consent or when they're underage. So how is that a privileged group? You know, but as far as racial issues go, I do think there's some truth to that, but I also don't like, and I have said this before, and I'm not going to talk too much about this, but I think that you're going about it the wrong way. I think the rhetoric is all wrong. You fucked up the rhetoric on the issue, because it used to be a rights issue. In the 60s, the left talked about civil rights, and you had the civil rights movement. You had you had later on, in the 60s, you had civil rights, and later on, in the 70s, you had gay rights. 1 minute. In the 70s, you had gay rights. In the 70s, 80s, 90s, you had gay rights. It's a right. It's not a privilege, because it should be a right. It's not a privilege for white people not to be harassed by police when they're walking down the streets, or accused of having drugs, or searched for drugs or guns or something else. That's a rights violation of blacks. You're violating their rights. So you should look at it as a rights issue. The rhetoric is all fucked up. And how long is it before they stop talking about giving black people rights and they just talk about, well, it's a privilege, we'll just take this from white people too? I could easily see them doing that. I think many of these people would rather take a privilege from a white person, or a right, or anything else you want to call it, than give the blacks the rights that they have. You know, it's a right. It's everyone's right. And that's the way you should approach that issue. Moving on from that, let's just jump to the issue corruption. One of the things you hear about Trump is he's a corrupt president, presidential corruption. I'm not saying he's not corrupt at all. I'm not saying he's the most straight and narrow guy. Obviously, he's a bit of a shady character, sure, but they all are. So are they all. I mean, even Bush was, Obama was, Bill Clinton was, George H.W. Bush, Ronald Reagan was. I mean, look at the CIA bringing drugs into the country and some of the stuff that Reagan was involved in. Hell, I'll go all the way back to Kennedy. Even Kennedy was a bit of a fucking corrupt character. I think he was a better president than most of them, but even he was a bit corrupt. So to act as if though Reagan is corrupt, I mean, all you could find on the guy was he banged a porn star, paid her to not go around telling everyone, and then she did anyway, so that wasn't the best investment. Nevertheless, that's all you could find on him. That, and he made a joke 11 or 12 years ago on a tour bus. That's all you know about the guy. And you can't find anything else. And you had 2.5 years and $1 trillion to do it with, or whatever. So if the guy is fucking corrupt, then you're incompetent. So either he's not corrupt or you're incompetent. And I mean, look who you wanted to put in office was Hillary Clinton. Bill Clinton's corrupt. Hillary Clinton's even more corrupt. And you wanted to put, and we know that, we know shit she did, including rigging the Democratic primary. And you wanted to put her in the fucking White House. So think about that. So I don't see why you have such an issue with corruption. I really question whether or not you really do. But getting back to the point, and we're talking a little bit more about genital mutilation, because what the hell, why not? The only thing I'm not against is Gresh Shalom, and that is pinpricking, and I'm not against doing that to girls either, honestly, because it's a fucking pinprick. Other than, like I said, you're messing around with the kids' genitals, and it's weird, and there's no reason, and/or porn for doing so, or to doing so, and I wouldn't. And like I said, I don't recommend it, but I'm not against it if you want to knock yourself out. I mean, I could make a slippery slope argument, but I won't even do that. And hell, I've even went so far as to say that I might not be against, or I would be open to accepting snipping off the very tip of the penis. I might be and I might not be, but I would be much more open to that than I am what you do, though not nearly as much as a pinpricking, obviously. But that would be a hell of a lot better than what you're doing, because it is just an outright mutilation. of the penis and of the rights of the child, and I don't think you have a right to do that or see why you're doing it. I don't understand that. But you know, and I mean beyond that, I guess closing out the video talking about something else other than dick chopping and fucking corrupt presidents for once. The Mandela effect is a fucking issue or topic I'm interested in. Having to do with CERN or whatever. It's an underground base, I think somewhere in Europe. I'm not really sure where I believe Europe. And there's a thing called what you call the Hadron Collider. And it's very complicated. I can go into all the details and specifics, and it takes a while. But the point is, they found what was called the Higgs boson, or the God particle. Originally it was going to be called the goddamn particle, but since this was already controversial enough, I guess they figured, God particle. But it was going to be called the goddamn particle because it was so damn hard to find. But it kind of represents, like, it has a lot to do with, like, the origins of life and where, existence and came from and all that, and it's very complicated shit. But I like studying that, and what it is they believe that because of that, or some people don't believe it has anything to do with that, but some people blame it on time travel. Other people will say it's because dimensions are crossing or colliding in some way. But it's a very interesting topic, and I like studying that, or rather looking at that and looking at that, because for the same reason I do a lot of stuff, but I like looking at it because it's something that doesn't make me hate my species or wish for the demise of my species. It's just something to watch, and it's fun, and it's not really that important. It's probably bullshit anyway, so I like it. I also like other things. I like vampires, for example. I like UFOs. I like Bigfoot. But I used to like wrestling, but I kind of grew out of it, and the show's not that good anymore. It's like whatever. I just don't give a shit about that. But the point is, even the old shit I don't really care about anymore. But the point is, I like watching different stuff like that doesn't make me really angry or depressed. And there's not a lot like that. I don't watch football. I don't watch basketball, baseball, soccer, anything like other people. I don't like sporting events. I watch Conor McGregor and UFC. That's about the only sporting I watch. So, I like that. And I guess that's something to talk about. That's one thing. That's an interesting topic. I like it more than I do, in some ways, really, even something like vampires, even though I'm really into vampires. Because it is just such a mind fuck that, just thinking about that will take up enough of your attention alone. And I used to be obsessed with vampires, by the way. That was an obsession I had at one time. It was more positive. And I was obsessed with gender bending. And even though that has a downside because it's kind of frowned upon in America to gender bend, cross dress, any of that, at least it was something I liked. So it was a positive. And now I'm obsessed with genital mutilation. So that's not so positive. And oh well, kind of my life. But yeah, that's about that. Yes, Boda, I can see your comment. It says it's being held for review. I will show it when I'm done doing this. I would do it now. I just don't want to mess up my video because it might. I don't know how that works. So, because it can be hard enough to get this to take anyways. But, and by the way, I appreciate you leaving comments and watching this. I see you've left, but what little you watched, I appreciate that. And I appreciate your like, because I assume it was you that liked my video. I appreciate that. So I appreciate watching me and giving me a chance. That's very nice of you. So that's that, pretty much. Just don't cut up your kids' dicks. And, I think that black people have rights, definitely rights issues. I don't think it's right to say that white people have privilege or that all white people have privilege. Some do, some don't. I don't believe in male privilege. I think there are probably issues with female rights, definitely abortion issues. They're trying to get rid of that. That's wrong. I don't think Trump is the most corrupt fucking president ever, or even close. And I don't think he's very corrupt at all compared to some of these people or some of these guys, because they had $1 trillion, like I said, in 2.5 years to prove he did something, and they can't prove shit other than he got laid, and didn't want her to tell anyone, and he fucking made a joke. That's the only damn thing we know about him. So all things considered, that's the video. I don't really have anything else to say, and I like the Mandela effect. That's pretty much it. Peace 666.